Thinking about it. All right, now we're live. All right, cool. Virtual Brown back again this week, February 9th. Um, 2016, I guess we gotta say the year because we're gonna
Yeah.
be doing this for a while. Yeah. So let's get started on this. I'm gonna kick it off to Claudia and George, and I'm gonna be trying to work on the website in the background as I listen in. All right, chat, guys.
Claudia, you got stuff you want to talk about? Or do you want me to start and then you jump in? Or what do you want to do? Also, you got completely like silhouette dark. And you're on mute.
All right,
There.
there you go. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, I need to move around here. All right, this should be better. Yeah, I was saying if you have anything lined up, ready to rock, you can go for it.
I mean, I don't have anything. Sure. All right. Yeah, let's do it. I'll explain one thing that I've been thinking of playing around with today.
Okay.
So, how much playing have you done with JavaScript generators, or the concept of generators in general?
I have read just a little bit about it, but haven't done
Okay.
quite much with it.
So the basic idea is that you get it's similar to if you stuck around C# long enough to see the async and await thing, which is in turn similar to how enumerators and yield work in C#, which
Okay.
in turn all similar to Python generators and actually a lot more powerful. So so the basic idea is you get a function. I don't mean to have this sin on up. Actually, you get a function that's a special type of function that returns what's called a generator, which is something with a next method, and you can keep calling that next. And within the function, you can yield, which basically means suspend execution of this function until next time the next method is called. And then at the time the next method is called, run till the next yield statement, so on and so on. So I've been playing around with that a little, and I like the idea of it. It's similar to like signals almost, or functional reactive programming, and I've been playing around with what you can get. So here's an example of me using it. I just kind of put this together this morning to do an animation workflow using generators. So if you see basically what happens, we've got this scenes function. What I'm using for the actual JavaScript is it's actually super simple. It's P5, which is basically processing. So you get functions like rec, draw line, stuff like that. So this is a series of frames, and between each frame, we just clear out the background, so it's drawing on a white screen every single time. So here's what I set up. So basically what this happens is it generates a series of executions, actually. So what we're saying is just go ahead and loop. And then we're going to draw. I've actually combined kind of 3 lines here. So this is really equivalent to, let me write it out in long form. I just didn't feel like doing it that way. Something like this. That's really what we're doing here. So here was what happens. As long as this left is less than whatever 390, we're gonna increment the left, and then we're gonna draw a rectangle, and this is just gonna draw it at those positions, and it's gonna yield back execution. The next time it comes in, it's still gonna be inside this loop as long as this left has not exceeded 400. And obviously, and then I was just like, you can combine that all to one line. It looks a lot nicer. You're not duplicating a bunch of stuff. So this is kind of cool for me. I like this idea where you can basically makes it very easy to model workflows and see exactly what that's doing. Because really, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's like 7 or 8 different behaviors here, each of which transition directly. And I've seen all sort of finite state automata things, And this just makes this is built into the language and makes it much simpler. By the way, generators have been in JavaScript for like several years. You don't actually need to transpile them or anything. So this is kind of a neat idea. I don't know if anyone has any questions or wants to talk about it some more.
So I tried using some generator stuff, but it's hard for me to use exactly. But don't they work with promises? I think I was okay when I start returning from promises.
Okay, so they don't have to work with promises. Here's the thing. Here's what you would. So the promises thing is a pattern called a coroutine, and in that case, the basic idea is. So remember what a generator is. It's just here. I'll actually show it right here. Let me scroll down to how this is implemented. So you call scenes, and that gives you an instance of a generator. The generator is something with a next method, and as long as the thing it returns isn't done, you can go ahead. You just can keep looping. So the issue is the thing with the promises is, well, what if you return a promise? Well, if you do, then you can say, okay, wire up to when the promise is resolved, and only at that point call the next. And the API that ends up giving you, where do I have a good example of? Let's see.
Nice backdrop there on Chrome.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
So the what it ends up giving you something like this. Actually, nope, that's not what I want. Notification. God damn it, this is the wrong branch too. Tags. Right. Okay. So here we've got. Yeah. So
bump up
here
the size.
Yep.
Just bump up the size on the. There you
So
go.
check this out. So load previous notifications. That's actually several asynchronous things that have to happen. You need to do an asynchronous get to like fetch stuff from a server. You need to wait for the DOM to be ready, and then you can modify the DOM. And both of those things are asynchronous and might not be resolved at the time that the method gets called. So what store.get does is return a promise. What DOM ready does is also return a promise. It'll resolve when the DOM is ready. And what the concept of coroutines does is say, hey, I'm going to keep calling next, but after I call next, I'm going to get back promise. I'm going to wait until that promise is resolved until calling next again. So just by combining those two concepts, you get this very simple thing. You do have to call it with something like run coroutine. In this particular case, this is out of Bluebird, but it's a pretty straightforward idea. I mean, the basics of it. I actually think this was like a very. That's not it at all. Like run coroutine would be as simple normally as this. Run coroutine equals generator. Where you would go const iterator. And then you would do something like iterator, let's see, until done. Iterator dot next. Current. And then you would say something like current.value.then until done. iterator.next iterator. Like that's the basic implementation of run coroutine. The only real difference between what something like Bluebird does and what you could do by yourself is like getting all the rules right on what happens when an exception is thrown. So like I don't actually want to sit down and implement it myself because you know what if an exception what if an exception is thrown at one of these points and where exactly it should bubble through. You just want to get it correct. So I don't care to do that. But because this needs to work with a try catch and the exception will come back through the promise and so on and so on. But that's coroutines, which is actually more it's an addition onto generators, but generators don't fundamentally have anything to do with promises. Like this is an example. They more have to do with having a series of steps in a function and allowing there to be points where you can say, all right, just let me know where I can run the next step. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think what I was trying to use it for was made for.
Yeah. So one of the things actually that I've been thinking, and I was going to try to finish coding it today before the meeting, and then I didn't. I was thinking, so we've got _JS and stuff like that, which has methods like debounce and throttle. In theory, like you could implement something like throttle like this, right? So let's say, and this isn't something that actually works right now, but I do think I can get it working in like another hour or two of work. So like throttle would be like, all right, wait for milliseconds to time pass signal, or get a signal for when a function is called. Actually, you wouldn't have that. And then just loop forever. Wait until you get the function is called signal. Actually, I guess I'm going to have to do this. And then call the function actually that you want to call, and then wait until the time has passed signal arrives, and then just keep doing that to infinity. Debounce, on the other hand, could be implemented like this, right? So you have your, and that's another one I probably need to inline. So I'm just putting together a possible API for this, but. So basically, a debounce would be like, okay, whichever of these signals happens first. Now, if the thing that happened first was that time passed, then go ahead and call the function. Otherwise, if the signal that was called was that the function was called, then we're gonna. I need to figure out exactly how to do this. I think maybe something like this. And then wait until the next time called or function call again. So something like that, and I think that could be a really powerful way. I don't know why. I don't have a concrete reason why I'm playing around with this, but I think that that's a very powerful way of modeling this stuff. Because implementing debounce normally, what does that look like? It's not exactly hard. It's something like this. But clear timeout and set timeout, which is all infrastructure commands, whether this is all very explicit, and I'm kind of thinking that if you kind of get wrist deep into it, it'll make it very easy to create your own. To just basically create your own functional helpers that would just work and actually make intuitive sense. So that's kind of my thought process on that. I'm playing around with it. I don't know. That's all I have to say about generators at the moment, unless anyone has any questions about it.
So you mentioned it's been around for a while.
I'm sorry.
You mentioned it's been around for a while. Like I'm always using it besides like Babel. Is it something that you don't need Babel for, or?
What, generators?
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't needed generators for like a year and a half. I mean,
Okay.
you haven't needed Babel for like a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like obviously if you need IE8 support, IE9 support, but the can I use on generators is actually pretty awesome.
Last time I looked at them, I was like getting on a year and a half, 2 years ago. So.
Yeah, it's that's what I want. Damn it. And that I completely broke something.
Don't you love that?
Yeah, where are we? Okay, where is it dropping me down to? Oh, there it is. It's at the very, very top. There we go, generators. So yeah, it's. I mean, the things. IE, blah, whatever. Safari actually still doesn't have it, which is surprising. But Node, Chrome, and Firefox all have it. So polyfill if you need IE and Safari support. Otherwise, you're pretty good. Yeah, and honestly, lately I've been having more and more projects where they're like, I don't care about IE support of any sort.
Ah.
Yeah, this is actually surprising that TypeScript doesn't support it. Man.
So have y'all been hearing about like a resurgence in Firefox? Like I've had a couple developers lately that they're all about Chrome, and then suddenly they're like, "Yeah, I've switched to Firefox full time," and I'm like, "What?"
I just installed this. It's the Firefox nightly build. So little. I don't know. Like Firefox to me, it's still kind of. I mean, obviously Safari's the worst, but Firefox to me is kind of the new IE in a lot of ways. Like there's so much stuff in there that just doesn't really work, or like weird CSS bugs that are actually kind of serious, but like are from. But like were reported 10 years ago and still not fixed, or like the fact that their dev tools breakpoints don't always trigger, like so I still have issues with it, but at the same time they're doing cool ass shit like this, which if you haven't seen is holy crap awesome. It's a really really easy markup based way to do virtual reality. Like so basically you say like I want a cube at this position, a sphere at this position, a plane at this position. And you can work with all that in JavaScript.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I mean like, and this works best in Firefox. It actually works okay in Chrome, but it doesn't work perfectly. And there's some JavaScript things like I found out object destructuring is supported in JavaScript, and it's not supported in Chrome yet. No, it will be at the end of February. So I don't know. I do kind of I could see using Firefox because of the JavaScript support and because if I was doing a lot of like graphics heavy stuff like this, but otherwise like I still see issues in their debugger, and that's a problem.
Yeah, their stuff was about like data security too. Like the idea that Google is not a good caretaker of your web traffic. They are incentivized to do all sorts of nasty things with your web traffic. Meanwhile, Firefox is.
Yeah, they're not wrong.
Yeah, so that was one of the driving forces for one of the personals.
Yeah,
I've just been seeing it lately more and more, and he was the first person I asked because everyone else I was like, okay, cool, they're using Firefox. I'm like, man, I'm seeing that more and more. What's going on?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. But still, like I don't know. At some point, I'm just like Chrome's a better tool for programming on the web.
Yeah.
But if they can get their shit together with as far as like JavaScript tooling I could certainly see myself switching. Cool. Anybody else want to talk about stuff?
Do you want to share some Angulars and Rails stuff? Oh, and George, you mentioned about how I read the Angular documentation. I was like, yes, I've seen the Angular documentation. I haven't seen it got better and better, but I don't know what it is right now.
No, it's not. It's not bad documentation. It's just a bad system. Like,
oh my God.
Like you read it, you're like, oh, okay. Well, like I knew that there was like that like you could provide a string at on the scope variable, and that would make it kind of read only. But it's not actually read only. Apparently, it's stringified, and then you could do like equals, and that does prototypical inheritance in it. But then there's all those other ones, and it's just every single thing in there is like, oh, but there's like here's like 5 caveats. Like this is not this isn't good.
Is that the new one? I don't remember using any of the ats and equals.
Yeah.
Well, that's for binding, right?
The directive stuff. Okay, yeah. I remember using those now.
Right.
Yeah, well, whatever, dude. I always viewed it as like the way I use Angular and the way it was awesome is that it was better than jQuery in terms of like I can do some really simple, awesome things and I can just start shipping stuff fast. I didn't need a huge framework. And I didn't want a huge framework. I just wanted something that I could JavaScript some pages up.
So you didn't need want a huge framework, so you got included Angular.
Yeah. Because the binding was easy and just get it done or whatever, you know.
Knockout then or something.
Knockout was like way more verbose. Like it took for like Knockout was Knockout was greater than not Knockout, but Angular to me is far superior to Knockout. If I was in a Knockout situation, I'd be like, dude, we're just replacing it with Angular.
I will say there's a couple things you have to know with Knockout. The first is like mapping. The mapping plugin is pretty invaluable. That gets rid of a lot of the duplication. And then like Knockout isn't enough. Like you should use it with like Require.js or JSPM or something like that. But then after that, like honestly, I was on a project 3 years ago at this point where we were using Knockout and Require, and I'm like looking at the stuff that's in Angular. I was like, we were doing all of this, and it was like a lot simpler and didn't have 5 million caveats for every single feature. So like you kind of have to do a little more work yourself, but like there's so many fewer edge cases. I don't know. Like I'm not impressed with Angular so far at all. I've been working with it pretty heavily for about a month.
Well,
but what kind of stuff have you been doing with it?
Well, just trying to put it together like a logical, composable UI.
But you're looking for the like composability, and you're already like doing these modules and stuff like that. And for me, I'm like, man, you bring in that stuff, I'm like, you're already it's a different level of complexity you're looking for, and it also be different tastes of stuff too, like what you want to have inside there versus what's there. Angular is not that. That's why I think Angular 2 is a problem. Is that Angular 2 was created because everyone went to Angular 1 wanting something that wasn't there, and so they wrote Angular 2 to provide all that stuff, but they destroyed what Angular 1 did have for its strengths.
Good. That monstrosity doesn't need to exist.
Well, it's the same thing where it's like I was talking with someone about Meteor, because I've been hacking on Meteor stuff, and like I like their Blaze template engine, and I like what it is. Like I know Meteor's a little wheelhouse, and I know what it fits, and it's easy for bringing people up. And they're like now apparently saying that, and this is all hearsay, but that you can have React as your template layer, and they're saying that's more the direction they want to go, and I disagree completely with that. Because while React is cool, and that having that reactive data store be neat, it's a barrier of entry to people, I think. Like that's why I think Meteor was strong point was like it's just some pretty simple JavaScript stuff that someone without a lot of experience can get in and start building a website and have some pretty cool features and things, and not need to know something really crazy. It's just JavaScript, and like your event handling and so forth is just CSS selectors and other stuff that's pretty easy to grok. But I'm like, React? Well, React isn't simple. It's awesome, but it's not simple.
Well, hold on. It is simple, but you need to have opinions in order to use it. you need to know what you're doing in that range. And so yeah, it's not great for beginners. That's absolutely true.
Knowing what binding this and knowing what this is, and I haven't. Like Meteor is pretty.
React like that. That's bad.
Well, Meteor has some of that stuff that it built in with the templating Blaze that was pretty nice because it was easy for them to understand. Like, oh, that's what this data context is for this page or whatever. Anyway, so I was like, yeah, quit messing with my mojo. like keep these things simple. Like sometimes I don't want a huge framework and complexity. Sometimes I'm like, I'm just hacking on some things and I want to start delivering stuff.
But that's the thing. Angular is a huge framework, and you're like, I'm trying to figure out whether this code makes sense to put in a controller or a directive link function or a directive controller or a service that should be included in one of those. And you're like, there's not really a good place to make a decision. Every single one of us has a long list of pros and cons. And you have to really understand a lot to make a good decision on it. So like what this reminds me of a lot is like you guys are both .NET guys is like web forms where like it's a clever system that lets you do a lot really quickly, but the second you try to drop down a level or like do something that's not like provided out of the box, you are in a huge learning like have to do a huge ramp up. Like and every single project that's in the Angular ecosystem I've seen having these issues, like having these arguments. Like, for example, Angular UI, they have their controller widget and their date picker widget. And recently I was like, look, I need a hook to know when someone goes back a month or forward a month because I need to do a back-end query. Like basically it was like a booking system, right? So you need to do a query to the database just when someone switches the month they're viewing. So you could be like, okay, these are the dates that are unavailable. Well, there's no hook exposed by that, even though it's based on the Bootstrap equivalent, and the Bootstrap equivalent does expose it. They completely rewrote it, so there's no hook into it. There's no internal hook into it. And I asked them about it on their issue tracker, and they get into a big argument about API bloat and stuff like that. And it's like, well, this isn't a system that's composed. This is a system where they're saying like, yeah, well, if that feature doesn't exist, you can't like drop down a level or take the pieces and recompose them yourself. You have to either use this or not, or good luck, you're rewriting it yourself.
Well, step one, Angular UI people. that'd be my one problem there. Yeah, because they were, or I guess are, extremely opinionated on the stuff, and that's why I think, I don't know, I can agree 100% on that some of their stuff was kind of crazy and didn't work, and and they completely rewrote it too, like.
Yeah, they didn't just compose Bootstrap. Why the heck not?
Yeah, because there's another project that did, and they like would spend all this time poo-pooing it about how terrible it is because they didn't do it. And in fact, I used the other one, if I remember correctly, because I was like, I needed that type of access and stuff, and it worked. I don't know if it's still around.
Yeah.
Because people were like Angular UI. That's the thing. Every Angular talk that I heard and saw on what people were doing with it always had me scratching my head, going, "Why? Like, what are you doing?" Like.
I look at most Angular code and I'm like, these people don't know JavaScript very well. Like that's what I'm seeing here.
Probably.
Like every single bit of code that I look at, I'm like, oh man, that's just not how it works. You're gonna hit all these edge conditions. Anyway, all right. I don't need to keep talking shit about Angular.
So Claudia, let's talk about Angular.
Yeah, well, so while you guys are talking about all these advanced scenarios or edge scenarios, so here's one scenario that I've been struggling with in the next couple of days, which is just a regular Rails app, and I decided to bring in Angular so I can create some directives to, drop them into certain views and do some stuff. And so in that way, I would be using the Rails asset pipeline to deliver the JavaScript and all that stuff. And in trying to follow with that model where, okay, I'm going to put my HTML templates under assets, JavaScript templates, or something like that, but that wasn't working. I was loading the page and my template was not showing up. I was like, oh crap. And then eventually I just, reading up online, people are saying, yeah, that doesn't work because this, that, or the other. Something related to, damn it, what's the name of the thing? Sprockets? Sprox? What's the name of the thing? Sprockets, right?
Sprockets, yeah, the asset pipeline, which is, yeah.
Right. So it had to do something with that. So ended up putting under public, public templates, which is definitely not the, the best place to put, but it was working. And then eventually I found out, actually let me share my screen here, about a gem that's supposed to handle that stuff. And still with that, I struggled a little bit because I missed two things in there. One was this. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, good. So it's this gem Angular Rails templates, right? So apparently all you have to do is to bring it to your gem file, require it on your application.js file, and then this is the part that I completely forgot for a couple of days, to require the templates folder in there, and I just couldn't get the thing to load at all. And then I dropped an issue here in the GitHub repository, and the guy helped me actually figuring that out, because that was the one part that I was missing. And then you also need to add it as a dependency on your Angular module, and in the directive you can just use it like this. But man, that took me a couple of days. Like I said, after like 2 or 3 hours fighting this, I said, well, let me just put it under the public folder, have it there because it's working that way. And then finally, the guy said, oh, have you tried, requiring that thing in the application.js? I was like, no, I actually overlooked that part. So that was my thing for it. Now, a question that I have.
So what's actually getting shipped to the browser when you do that? This is like basically the Rails already does the bundling and everything, right?
Right.
It's all bundled as one thing.
Exactly.
Ah, okay. So that makes sense why it's doing that then.
Yeah. So now the part that I'm not sure of it is that, like I said, I'm using this directive in one view in Rails, but anytime I go to any view and I see on the console, it's fetching all of these JavaScript stuff. Is that how it's supposed to work, or is there anything that I need to do to say, no, you only bring it down if I go to this specific view?
Yeah, it should cache it automatically. I thought. I'm trying to remember what. I'm loading up an old.
But it would cache in browser cache, but if you're looking in DevTools, if cache is disabled when you look in DevTools, then yeah, it's going to bring it down automatically.
Yeah, so I'm using Angular Rails templates. That's what you're using, right?
Right.
Let me take a look at my asset pipeline setup. I am requiring Angular Rails templates. Do you require inside? I guess you do inside your JavaScript. Do you have your application JS?
Yeah.
Let's see if we look at that. Ruby mine. What are you doing to me? Okay. So for me, I didn't require my templates folder.
What version of Rails are you running?
The one that's a better one, apparently.
Because remember, on Excellent Brain we were using this, and there we don't have any of this, but there we are still running Rails 3.
This is 4.1.4.
Okay.
And this one, 4.1.4. Trying to see, I don't have any. You're requiring a tree. So that's weird. Like you're requiring the tree, but then you have to. Oh, wait. Where did you put your templates?
So it's over.
I think I'm in screen here. I'm like clicking on your screen and nothing is happening. Yeah. See, I put my templates inside my JavaScript folder.
Well,
I know it's weird, but it worked.
yeah, and I think I tried that, but even then on that gem it says something here, right? So if you put it under JavaScript, you still have to require it like this. I don't think well, I've tried putting my templates there, but it didn't work.
But they're
I
not
haven't tried.
they're not doing require tree dot in this example. So they would have to do that. In your case, you
Okay,
can require tree dot, so it would get everything under JavaScript.
right. Yeah, I may need to try that then.
Let me see what I'm doing in my other project with Angular. This is Rails 4.0. It uses Angular Rails. It also uses ngmin-rails, but I think that's something else. That sounds like it minifies it.
Right.
Who wrote this project? Oh wait, I wrote all this project. I should know these things. But I was thinking yesterday, you appreciate this, is like being a generalist, what that means for technology is that when you come someone who knows nothing about it, you appear like a genius. But anyone who knows anything else about it, you appear like an idiot, including yourself. So most of the time you're an idiot, but other people might think you're smart because you're like, wow, you can do that and that? I'm like, yeah, but I'm not any good at any of it.
Right.
Yeah, this one I put templates in my JavaScript folder. I don't have to require it at all. But of course, my Angular Rails templates. Let's see what version it is. I'm using 0.1.3, so I don't even know what their version they're up to yet.
Yeah, not sure. Let's see here. 0.2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, like I said, doing it this way, it started working. I'm like, okay, moving on to the next thing, you know. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that was that for me here. There are other things, other struggles, but I haven't documented them to go over.
So so every time you make a request, and have you seen this in production at all, or where you're hosting, or is it?
No, not. I mean, I'm seeing it in development mode here, but haven't looked into in production yet. That would be my next thing.
Yeah. See, I suspect that if it is doing it in production, I suspect it is because of its location being outside the JavaScript folder that it's loading.
Okay. Yeah. I'll check it out. Probably push it up to production later tonight, and then I'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So yeah, that's one thing I wanted to share, and the other thing is actually not very technical. I'm trying to balance, how much I get into the technical stuff as opposed to, look, there's also all the other stuff going on around the world that I should pay attention to, like not reading just, heavily technical books, but reading books about marketing and some other stuff that I normally don't have a big, interest in. But I've been finding some interesting things here. So first, one thing that I've gotten into about a year ago was this site, Postachio. I don't know how they actually pronounce it, but the reason why I like it is because I can post stuff to my blog straight from Evernote, right? Because that's, I mean, for my blog on WordPress, I would always be like writing the main draft for my blog post in Evernote, putting the images and stuff. But then there was no way for me to take that and then post it to WordPress, which pissed me off. So I started looking at other things, and then I found this one site, right, where you can create your blogs, for free and stuff, and then it integrates with Evernote, so I can do everything in Evernote, and then all I need to do is to put a tag on my blog post, and this is the published tag. As soon as I do that, it pushes it up to the website. So started a separate blog just for that, just to try it out, make sure that it would work the way I wanted it to work. So it's my like musical blog where I post stuff like my top 10 lists for specific bands or for my own music or my original songs. As soon as my internet comes back to life here. I write like a blog post about the song I wrote, a link to the video I've put up, and the lyrics and what I was feeling when I wrote the song and musical influences and crap like that. And again, all just checking, okay, how does it integrate with putting YouTube links and SoundCloud links and stuff like that. And it works fine. So I said, all right, I'll keep using that. And then my next thing was, all right, how can I use something similar to my technical blog or the blog where I talk about business stuff? Because when I was blogging more frequently, I was on the Windows platform and I was using Windows Live Writer, which I really liked. It worked just the way I wanted. I could just put in some text, I could drop in some images, and it had some plugins for like Amazon and YouTube and crap like that. It was just easy to keep drafts and publish that straight from that tool. Now on the Mac, I don't have such a tool, and in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I've been looking for blogging tools for the Mac. I didn't really like any of the ones I found until about a month ago when I found this tool called Blogo, which apparently I think it's some Brazilian team that works on this. So it's a very simple tool, WYSIWYG type of tool, and it also integrates with Evernote, and that was my point. So I can go into Evernote. There is a special notebook where I create my drafts for everything that comes to mind that I may want to blog about. Whenever I'm ready to start actually fixing the layout on my blog post, I can go into Blogo, it pulls my stuff from Evernote, I can make my changes and then publish it from there. All right, so that's been working well for me. It's about $30 this tool. I've used it for a month for free just to try it out. I like it, so I ended up purchasing a license for it, and that's how I've been keeping up with my technical blog. A blog post from last week is how I'm catching up with book reading, because I've gotten into the bad habit of starting, reading books and never finishing them. So like right now I have 10 books that I've started, and they're all hanging in there, and I really want to, finish them off. So I wrote up, about how I'm going about that. So pretty much all of my digital books, I put it in Evernote. There are special books notebook in there where I put all the digital, like PDF and whatever other formats in there. If I do have like Kindle books that I just sync it up to my iPad directly, I still create a note in here about that book with a book cover and title, because this is where I also want to put like comments. And then what I do with these books, I put tags on them, almost like following the Scrum things that we do. So I tag some of them with backlog to indicate the books that I want to read, because there's like, I don't know, 200 books, but not all of them I actually want to really read cover to cover. So I go in, tag them with this backlog tag for the ones that I do want to read at some point. I tag with to read the ones that I really want to start reading as soon as I can, right? And then I have my reading, which is, as soon as I start reading a book, I tag the note with that, and the read tag to indicate the ones that I've read. And then I work with some saved searches in Evernote for my, my backlog to read, reading, and read books. In order to create the saved searches, I first create the search like this, like notebook, and what's the notebook, what are the tags that I want to filter on, and then you edit, find, save search. That way they will show up on the little search menu. And I also write the book notes in Evernote. I mean, even though I know that, for instance, in Kindle, it's very nifty how you can just, on my iPad, that's what I do most of my reading, I can just put comments right there, and then Kindle will post that to their cloud service, and then I can do a dump of those notes someplace else. But since I do not have everything on Kindle, I decided to just stick with Evernote for my Kindle books, my PDFs, any printed books. I do the same thing. I just put my notes in there. And some of the books that I've been reading following this so I can finish them off, one is this thing here, Anything You Want, by Derek Sivers. This guy is a very cool guy. I mean, he's so energetic and he has so many good ideas. And he's the guy who created CD Baby back in '97, I think. CD Baby is a website for independent musicians, and that's when I first heard about this website all those years ago, because it's always been so hard to put music out unless you are signed by a label. So this guy, he was a musician, he still is a musician. He essentially said, you know what, there's no way for me to get signed, so what I'll do is I'll find a way to find my CDs online. So he went to a bookstore, bought one book on PHP, I think, and one on MySQL, created a site, and then this business just kept growing and growing, and eventually he sold it for like, I don't know, $20 million a couple of years ago. But on this book, he shares a lot of good stuff. I pulled a couple of quotes from there, like success comes from persistently improving and inventing, not from persistently promoting what's not working. All right, that rings something with me. The other one is this, your business plan is moot. You don't know what people really want until you start doing it, which has also been ringing with me, because sometimes I've been very good at collect lots of them down and put them someplace, but I haven't been doing anything with most of them because I'm like, all right, I have to make a plan for it. I need to, write down exactly how I'm going to approach this. Well, reading his book, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I should just start doing it. Forget about big plans and big whatever. Just do it, right? Just try it out, because then the other thing he says there, no business plan survives first contact with customers. And that's true. I mean, so many times I've seen people, back at the office making all these plans and then building an application for, supposedly their users, and then when they actually show it to their users, the users are like, yeah, that does not quite actually work for us, and I mean, I've read about it, I've experienced things like that so many times, and then reading it in a book by somebody who's not exactly a software developer, that was actually that was interesting, at least for me. And it's a quick read. I read it, I don't know, like in an afternoon or something like that. The other one is this Mastering Creativity by James Clear. He also has a very good blog that I've been following, and he writes up really some good stuff. So here he talks about breakthrough mental blocks, uncover your creative genius, and make brilliance a habit. And then a couple of things that he mentioned there, the willingness to create garbage. And it's the same thing like with my blog. I kept putting together a bunch of ideas for things that I wanted to write, but I'm very specific about how I write. I spend like a lot of time thinking through everything, all the scenarios, everything I want to talk about, so it ends up becoming so big, I don't ever start, right? And what the guy talks about here is, just put it out, just write it up and put it out. Even in its, rawest form, it's still going to be helpful to other people who may be going through the same thing, and it's going to help yourself figuring out, okay, where exactly do I need to actually spend more time to improve this written material. So that was interesting. Stick to
script. That's a pretty good topic and idea, because so I was blogging for a bit, pretty active earlier or later last year, but then some other stuff came up, and I think it really, to me, is just inertia of stuff where it's like because I had an idea of what I want to do and I put it out there, but like I never tweeted it too. Like I'm terrible at marketing stuff like that. And also, it's like I'm about to change the site to put it all under my name because the idea that I don't. If it's just like, to me, when it was a blog with my name on it, there was less weight or guilt or anything associated with it because I'm like, if I wanted to write about, like anything, just random thing, like you were talking about your music. Like, what if I wanted to write, like, I'm reading Wheel of Time right now. What if I want to complain about this book I'm reading right now because it's too long and boring? I can be like, this other side, I'm like, no, because that's not really technical related, and stuff like that. If it's my name, I'm like, I don't care, it's my site, I can do whatever I want, like. And I think if I had that, I would feel better because I can just be like, if I want to share, here's some funny gifts that I like. No one can complain if it's just my site and be like, on my personal site, I can do what I want. So
yes, that's exactly, and that's it goes well with on that first book I mentioned by Derek Sivers. One of the things that he says is like, when you create a company, it's your utopia. It's how you want the world to be. So if you're putting out a blog, it's your blog. Nobody has to tell you, how you should write stuff, what you should write about. It's your thing, man. Either people will like it or not. Who cares? It's your thing. Make it, make it yours.
Yeah. I'm working on it.
Good.
And then I'll share.
Yeah. Absolutely. So so I've been trying to follow that, as well as his tip on stick to strict schedule. So it's the thing like, okay, one of the goals, my goals for this year is to blog more. Well, just saying to blog more, that's not actually actionable, right? What does it really mean? So I said, well, what I want to do is once a week, I need to have one blog post up. It has to happen, right? It has to be on that schedule. And then he talks about, sometimes you may not feel like writing, but it's like, no, that's your schedule. If you say that on Tuesday you need to post to your blog, you're going to have to do it. You don't have to feel inspired. You may not feel inspired at all, but you just have to do it, right? It's like you see like soccer players who are at the top of their games, like Cristiano Ronaldo, for instance. And everybody says he is not the best in the world because he was born like that. It's because when everybody goes home, he stays there kicking the stupid ball, like practicing free kicks and penalty kicks and stuff like that, when everybody's already, taking some rest. The guy's just there. He's extremely talented, but he's always going through the things that the other ones don't want to go through. So I say, yeah, that actually rings a bell, because for me it's like, yeah, I have all this stuff, but I'm not feeling inspired right now, so I'm not going to do it. Like, well, screw me that I'm not inspired. Just sit your ass down and start writing. Whatever comes to mind. You're not editing at that point. You're just writing, just flushing out ideas. Then you come back at another point, set your schedule and say, okay, if I need to publish on Tuesday, well, Tuesday morning, I better find the time to edit my blog post, and then the other point there is the power of constraints. Just set the constraints that you need to live by. So it's like, well, I only want to spend 20 minutes editing this blog post. Because if you say, well, I have all day to do this, you're probably not going to do it, or you're going to do it the last 5 minutes of your time. So just commit to some time. If it's 20 minutes, it's 20 minutes. If it's 5 minutes, it's 5 minutes, right? So setting constraints like that has been interesting. And having the daily routine. It's like, okay, I've been trying to figure out what is my routine for the week and for the day. So that at the start of the day, I know what I need to do by the end of the day, and by the end of the day, I need to look at my things and make sure that I've checked everything I wanted to do. So those are some things that I found very productive. And again, this book is a PDF with 20, 30 pages, very short read. Definitely recommend. And then finally, this other one that has nothing to do with stuff that I've been working with myself, the 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. Excellent book. Just
Yeah, I've heard
excellent
good
book.
things about it. It's been on my list.
Oh, it's great, man. And also, it's a very short read. By all means, read it. Because there are some things like, I've been having some ideas for maybe products that I want to work on. Like from Derek Sivers' book, he mentioned, when he created CD Baby, it was not because he wanted to create a website to sell music for independent musicians. It's something he created because he needed. He was a musician who needed his music out, so he had all of the motivations in the world to actually do that, right? It came from him needing it. And then I read this book on marketing where they have some laws like the law of leadership, like rule number 1. It's better to be first than it is to be better. And then it's like, well, that is true. And then the examples that he mentions is like, most of the time, if not every time, people will always remember the first person to have done something or the first product that came to market, and whether that is the best product or not. Because sometimes you have the first person did something, everybody will remember. And then the second person will learn from the first person, will probably become better than the first person, but nobody will know who the second person is, while the first person will always come to mind. Some things like this, like, well, crap, yeah, that is true. So why am I sitting on my ass thinking about these ideas and not just actually doing something and putting it out there, right? Well, but can you be the first on everything? And then there comes the second law, the law of category. If you can't be the first in a category, just set up a new category you can be first in, right? So, oh, that is the first person who has done, I don't know, whatever. Well, okay, that's the first person. Let's maybe a woman would want to be the first woman to do that same thing, right? So then you start establishing separate categories for those things. So, anyways, there's like 22 laws, and I've read through it. It has nothing to do with software development per se, but it gave me a different insight. Even when I'm talking to my clients now, I keep these things in mind. So I'm talking to them, I'm not thinking in programming terms anymore. I'm thinking through, what does a client actually need?
You there? Did we lose you?
Claudio?
We lost him. We lost him.
I lost him.
Yes.
I do read Derek Sivers' blog is actually pretty interesting. I think calling him not a programmer is not exactly correct. I mean, he's definitely like someone in the vein of an old school hacker, just maybe not coming from that typical background. But I mean, some of his writing is straight up that alley.
Yeah, I read a marketing. I can't remember the name of it. I want to say like I'm lying to you or something, and I thought that was a pretty interesting book. Let me see. I'm looking it up. Nope. Shut up, Amazon. But someone commented and agrees like the new game on the internet is closing modals. It's like every site you go to, sign up for a newsletter. Here's a little ad. Here's this. And you're like, stop it, go away. I just wanted to serve. Trust me, I'm lying. There we go. That's I've been enjoying that.
Did you read that recent Billy Joe Armstrong post about what is it, OSC over UDP or something like that?
No.
Okay, that's been like everyone I know who's into Elixir has been sharing that. It's pretty interesting. I think it's his most recent blog post. You should read it. Basically, he talks about how the OSC transfer format is actually way superior to stuff like JSON in a lot of cases, and it's got a lot of that same simplicity that made Erlang popular, or well, Elixir technically, but that made the OTP popular. Yeah.
Well, I know right now it's killing me is JSON API. I just want to shoot myself in the face.
Yeah.
That, and I hate relational data model. So like, it's like relational data model, like I have a relational database, relational data model, trying to return JSON API. It's pain in my rear.
It's not the worst.
Dude, it's because the way it's not the model's bad, but like, so it's, you're returning, you want to return down several has many relationships, but then filter some of those has relationships based on the current context of the user. And so like getting the right data package together and then returning the JSON the right shape and all that stuff, and like it's not an enjoyable experience. And
do you have control over the database? Can you just change users higher up in the hierarchy?
Yeah, well, we can start flattening some stuff out, but that's not really, I don't think it's that as much as we're already trying to keep the data model pretty simple because I hate joins. And so it's different people have different tastes. Like to me, like a relational person's like, what's wrong with joins? I'm like, God, I hate joins. And then I'm like,
I have to be in some pretty dire straits to implement a many-to-many relationship. I hate it.
Dude, we have so many, and that's the thing too. I was looking, I was like, man, like if we were doing this in NoSQL or document store like Mongo or whatever, it'd be so easy. Like some of these, and I think it's just who I am. Like I think that way. So thinking about the join. So when I see a join, I'm like, ugh, and it's not like someone else is like, oh, it's no big deal. I'm like, God, I just want this one field. There's one thing, like knowing which. I'm trying to remember. Like it was one where I was like, look, if I just had an array of IDs on this thing, we'd be done.
I do that all the time. Actually, I just friggin' fine serialize to JSON, update it when I need to.
Yeah, that's the problem with my Postgres databases. I end up having like a lot of JSON fields because I'm just like, I'm not going to do any query on it. Just dump it in there.
I do it in SQL Server. Just serialize to a string. My entity will just serialize it. That's fine.
Yeah. So, all the DBMs are like, DBAs are like, oh my God. And I'm like, it's fine. It's fine.
All right, man. Well, we're at the hour.
At the hour. That's right. It's a good day.
Hey, you're back.
Hey, he's back.
Nah, he's a robot.
Yeah. Everyone is having fun at Carnival right now, so it's messing his internet up.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Claudio. So.
We'll just end it here, and we'll get together again next week.
All right.
Talk to you later.
See you later. Bye.